The crosshairs settled on the target 1,200 meters away. Petty Officer Second Class Nadia Okonkwo had exactly 4 seconds before the enemy's sniper fired again and killed another American. Her finger rested on the trigger of a rifle that everyone on this mountain had called museum piece. The M14 was 53 years old. It had been her great-grandfather's in Vietnam. In the next heartbeat, it would either prove that 4 generations of warriors had led to this moment, or it would prove that Senior Chief Kelleher had been right about her all along. 3 weeks earlier, Naval Special Warfare Command, Coronado, California. The Pacific wind carried salt and diesel as Nadia stepped off the transport with a rifle case that drew stares from every operator on the tarmac. She was used to the looks by now. A black woman carrying what appeared to be antique hardware into the most elite special operations community in the world. The whispers started before her boots hit concrete. She walked past them without acknowledgement, her focus fixed on the administrative building ahead. A young sailor struggling with an overstuffed sea bag stumbled in front of her, gears scattering across the pavement. His canteen rolled toward the drainage grate. Nadia stopped, retrieved it, and helped him gather his equipment while other personnel walked past without a glance. "Thanks," the sailor managed, his face flushed with embarrassment. "I am so late for check-in." "Then you better move," Nadia said, handing him the canteen. "Good luck with BUD/S." She was now 7 minutes behind schedule for her own check-in. It did not matter. Kindness was never wasted time. Inside the building, a Master Chief with silver hair and eyes that had seen 3 decades of conflict looked up from his desk as she entered. His gaze moved from her face to the rifle case, and something shifted in his expression. "That case," he said slowly. "The worn leather. The markings." He stood, moving closer. "May I?" Nadia set the case on his desk and opened it. The M14 lay nestled in custom foam, its woodstock bearing the scars of jungle humidity and decades of careful maintenance. The Master Chief exhaled like he had seen a ghost. "Isaiah Okonkwo's rifle. I will be damned. My father served with him at Key, San in '68. Said your great-granddaddy could shoot the wings off a fly at 800 meters. Before we continue, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. Maybe you have military heirlooms in your family, too. Items passed down through generations that carry more than just history." "You knew about him," Nadia said. It was not a question. "Master Chief Isaiah Trent. My father talked about him until the day he died. Said Isaiah Okonkwo was the finest shooter he ever saw, and nobody believed the shots that man made, because nobody thought they were possible." He looked at her with new recognition. "And you must be the great-granddaughter, the one he trained himself." "He taught me everything," Nadia said. Before he passed, the door behind them opened. A man built like a concrete barrier stepped inside, his senior chief anchors gleaming on his collar. Damon Kelleher carried himself with the coiled authority of someone who had killed in more countries than most people could name. His eyes found Nadia and dismissed her in the same instant. "Trent," he said. "Command wants the briefing moved up." He finally acknowledged Nadia with a glance that lingered on the M14. "And this must be our publicity stunt." Nadia's spine straightened, but her voice remained level. "Petty Officer Second Class Okonkwo, reporting for attachment to Special Warfare Team 7. "I know who you are," Kelleher said. "I also know what you are. A check mark on some Admiral's diversity initiative." He gestured at the rifle. "And apparently you brought your grandfather's antique to show and tell." "Great-grandfather," Nadia corrected. "And this rifle has more confirmed kills than most of your operators combined." Kelleher's expression hardened. "Range kills do not mean anything when rounds are coming back at you. I have seen plenty of range champions freeze when steel starts flying. Then you have never seen me shoot." The silence stretched between them. Trent watched without intervening, understanding that some battles had to be fought without allies. Kelleher finally smiled, but it contained no warmth. "Tell you what, I will take you on one condition. Tomorrow morning, you outshoot my sniper web on the long range. When you fail, you go home, and that rifle goes back to whatever museum it belongs in." He left without waiting for her response. Trent shook his head slowly. "Kelleher lost someone," he said quietly. Years ago, a female officer attached to his team. He has never gotten past it. I'm not here to help him get past anything, Nadia said. I am here to do my job. Then you better shoot like your great-granddaddy tomorrow. Because Petty Officer Webb has not missed a target in 3 years. Nadia closed the rifle case, her fingers tracing the worn leather that her great-grandfather's hand had touched 10,000 times before hers. Neither have I. The range at Coronado stretched toward the Pacific, targets positioned at intervals that would make most shooters question their equipment. Nadia arrived at 0530 to find a crowd already gathered. Word had traveled fast. The woman with the antique rifle versus the team's best sniper. Entertainment for operators who had seen everything. Petty Officer First Class Marcus Webb was already prone at the firing line, his custom .338 Lapua Magnum resting on its bipod like a surgical instrument. He was lean and focused, with the quiet confidence of someone who had never been outshot in competition. He glanced at Nadia as she approached, his expression more curious than hostile. "So you're the one with the museum piece," he said. "Webb, heard you have some history with that rifle." "4 generations of history," Nadia replied, setting her case beside his position. Webb nodded slowly. "My grandfather carried an M14 in Vietnam. Good rifle. But that was 50 years ago. Technology has moved on. The rifle does not make the shot," Nadia said. "The shooter does." Kelleher stood behind them with his arms crossed, flanked by a dozen team members who had found reasons to be at the range this early. The message was clear. This was a public audition, and failure would be witnessed by everyone who mattered. "Standard qualification course," Kelleher announced. "Targets at 400, 600, and 800 meters. 5 rounds each distance. Highest score wins." He paused. "Webb, you're up first." Webb settled behind his rifle with practiced ease. His breathing slowed. The first shot cracked across the range, and 400 meters away, the target registered a hit dead center. He fired 4 more times in steady rhythm. All 5 rounds clustered within inches of each other. At 600 meters, he repeated the performance. The Lapua's superior ballistics made the distance look effortless. His grouping tightened even further. At 800 meters, wind became a factor. Webb adjusted, read the conditions, and delivered 5 more rounds that would have earned perfect scores in any military qualification. He rose from his position with the quiet satisfaction of a man who had just proven a point. "Your turn," he said to Nadia. "No disrespect intended, but that M14 is going to struggle past 600 in this wind." Nadia did not respond. She opened her case and lifted the rifle her great-grandfather had carried through Key San, through Hugh City, through moments that history books had never recorded because no one believed they were possible. The wood stock was warm in her hands, worn smooth by decades of use. She settled into position, adjusting the vintage scope that her great-grandfather had personally calibrated. The optic was old but precise, its glass clearer than anything manufactured today, because it had been ground by hand by a craftsman who no longer existed. The range fell silent. Nadia's first shot at 400 meters hit center mass. Her second overlapped the first hole. By her 5th round, she had created a single ragged opening that Webb leaned forward to examine with visible surprise. At 600 meters, the M14's limitations should have shown. The lighter round, the older design, the scope that belonged in a museum. Instead, Nadia delivered a grouping that matched Webb's precision. One of the watching operators whistled low. 800 meters. The wind had picked up, gusting from the Pacific in unpredictable patterns. Webb's Lapua had handled it well. The M14 was not designed for these conditions. Nadia closed her eyes. Her great-grandfather's voice filled her memory, patient and warm. "The rifle is nothing, little wolf. The shooter is everything. Breathe with the wind. Do not fight it. Move with it." She opened her eyes and began to shoot. The first round hit center. The second landed beside it. The third, fourth, and fifth created a cluster that was smaller than Webb's. At 800 meters, with a 53-year-old rifle, in gusting wind, Webb stood frozen, his expression cycling through disbelief into something that looked almost like respect. That is not possible, he said quietly. Kelleher pushed through the gathered operators, his face unreadable. He studied the distant target through his spotting scope for a long moment. Nadia rose and began cleaning her rifle, her movements calm and methodical. She did not gloat. She did not even look at Kelleher. Victory required no commentary. Range shooting is not combat, Kelleher finally said. Anyone can hit paper. But his voice had lost its certainty. The operators around him exchanged glances. They had seen something that challenged their assumptions, and special operators did not ignore evidence. Webb approached Nadia as she packed her rifle. That grouping at 800, he said. How did you compensate for the wind shift between rounds 3 and 4? I did not compensate, Nadia said. I anticipated. The wind has a rhythm if you listen long enough. Webb stared at her. Then he nodded slowly. I want a rematch. Sometime when the senior chief is not watching. I want to see what else that rifle can do. It was the first olive branch anyone had offered. Nadia accepted it with a slight nod. That night, she video-called Lieutenant Commander Diana Yellerin, the woman who had recommended her for this assignment. O'Yellerin's face filled the screen, her expression knowing. I heard you made an impression, O'Yellerin said. Webb has not stopped talking about your groupings. Kelleher still thinks I'm a publicity stunt, Nadia replied. O'Yellerin's expression softened. He lost someone in '09. A female intel officer attached to his team. IED took her during an operation he planned. He has never said it out loud, but he blames the attachment policy. He blames himself, and he takes it out on every woman who comes near his team. Nadia absorbed this information. It did not excuse his behavior, but it explained the depth of his resistance. I'm not here to change his mind, she said finally. I am here to do my job. Then do it, O'Yellerin said. Do it so well that his mind changes on its own. That is the only way it ever works. The call ended. Nadia sat alone in her temporary quarters, holding her great-grandfather's dog tags in her palm. Isaiah Okonkwo had faced worse than Kelleher. He had served in a Marine Corps that did not want him, fought in a war that did not value him, and made shots that no one believed because no one wanted to believe a black man could be that good. He had died, still waiting for recognition that never came. Nadia would not wait. She would not ask permission. She would simply be undeniable. The next morning, orders arrived. Deployment to Afghanistan in 48 hours. Kelleher gathered the team for briefing, his eyes finding Nadia in the back of the room. You want to combat, he said. You are about to get more than you bargained for. The C-17 droned through the night sky somewhere over the Atlantic, its cargo bay filled with operators who had learned to sleep anywhere. Nadia sat with her back against the fuselage, the M14 case secured between her boots. Around her, the SEALs had arranged themselves in clusters defined by years of shared operations. She occupied her own island of space. Chief Petty Officer Tobias Katsaros dropped into the seat beside her. He was Kelleher's second-in-command, a Greek-American with a wrestler's build and eyes that missed nothing. For the first hour of the flight, he had watched her from across the cargo bay. Now he had apparently decided to gather his own intelligence. Okonkwo, he said. That is Nigerian, yes? My father's side, Nadia replied. Fourth-generation American, but we kept the name. Katsaros nodded. My grandfather came from Crete. Fought the Nazis in the mountains when he was 15. He used to say that where you come from matters less than what you do when it counts. Nadia recognized the opening for what it was. A test wrapped in conversation. What do you want to know, Chief? Katsaros smiled slightly. Direct. Good. He leaned back, studying her. I want to know if you're going to be a problem. Not because you are a woman. I do not care what is between your legs. I care if you could do your job when everything goes sideways. When has it ever not gone sideways? Nadia said. Katsaros laughed, a short bark that drew glances from nearby operators. Fair point. He sobered. Kelleher is hard on you because of his own demons. That is his burden to carry. But out there, none of that matters. Out there, we are one unit or we are dead. You understand? I understand, Nadia said. I'm not here to prove anything to Kelleher. I am here to do the job. Then we will get along fine. Katsaros stood, then paused. That shot at 800 meters. Webb has not shut up about it. Says you read the wind like you were born in it. My great-grandfather taught me, Nadia said. He used to say the wind has a voice if you know how to listen. Katsuro's considered this. Maybe you can teach some of that to the rest of us. He moved back to his section of the aircraft, leaving Nadia alone with the hum of the engines and the weight of what lay ahead. They landed at Ramstein for refueling, then continued to Bagram before the final leg to forward operating base Chapman in Kos province. The landscape below transformed from European green to Afghan brown, mountains rising like broken teeth against a sky bleached white by dust and sun. FOB Chapman was smaller than Nadia expected. Concrete barriers and razor wire enclosed a collection of plywood buildings and reinforced bunkers. The air smelled of diesel, burning trash, and something else beneath it all, the smell of a place where violence was never far away. Kelleher gathered the team immediately after arrival. No rest, no adjustment period. They had a mission window approaching, and preparation took priority over comfort. Nadia adapted faster than anyone anticipated. She memorized the base layout within hours, identified firing positions and evacuation routes by instinct rather than instruction. When the team conducted equipment checks, her rifle was ready before anyone else's. Webb found her in the armory that evening, cleaning the M14 with the same ritual care she had performed 10,000 times before. "You know this base already," he said. "I watched you walking the perimeter. You were cataloging sightlines." "Habit," Nadia replied. "My great-grandfather taught me to know my ground before I ever need to use it." Webb sat on an ammunition crate, watching her work. "Tell me about him." "The man who carried that rifle." Nadia's hands continued their practiced movements. "Isaiah Okonkwo, Marine Scout Sniper. Kisan, Hughes City, a dozen operations that never made the history books. He was one of the first black snipers in the Corps, back when that meant something different than it does now." "Different how?" Nadia looked up. They did not want him there. Thought he did not belong. So he became the best shooter anyone had ever seen. Made shots that commanders said were impossible. And when they could not deny what he had done, they just stopped talking about it. Pretended it never happened. Webb was quiet for a moment. "That is why you carry his rifle." "I carry his rifle because it reminds me," Nadia said. "Every shot I take for both of us. Every doubt I face, he faced worse. And he never stopped, never quit, never let them make him less than what he was." She finished reassembling the M14 and held it up to the light, checking the action. He used to say that excellence is the only answer to doubt, that the quietest whisper carries further than the loudest shout. "Wolf whisper," Webb said softly. "That is what they called you in Afghanistan before. Your first deployment. I read your file." Nadia set the rifle down. "They call my great-grandfather that first. He moved through the jungle like a ghost." Said the wolf does not announce itself. It simply appears. And by then it is too late. Webb shook his head slowly. "And you really think that old rifle can keep up with modern systems? In actual combat, not just on a range?" Nadia met his eyes. "My great-grandfather made a shot at 1,100 meters in Hughes City with this rifle. In the rain, at night. Saved his entire squad from an ambush they never saw coming. The Marine Corps did not believe him. Said the shot was impossible. He spent 50 years being called a liar." She picked up the rifle again, feeling its weight, its history. "This rifle knows what it can do. And so do I." Later that night, Nadia sat alone on a concrete barrier at the edge of the base, watching the mountains darken against the sky. Somewhere out there, enemies waited. Plans are being made. Violence was being prepared. She held her great-grandfather's dog tags in her palm and spoke quietly to the darkness. "I am here, Baba. I made it this far. Whatever comes next, I will make you proud." The wind carried her words away toward the mountains, where tomorrow's battles were already taking shape. Morning brought the mission briefing. A high-value target had been identified, a bomb maker responsible for 12 American deaths. Intelligence had located an informant willing to provide his exact position. Kelleher outlined the operation with cold precision. Insertion by helicopter. Extract the informant. Return to base. Simple on paper. Nadia studied the terrain maps while the others asked questions. Something bothered her. the ridgelines, the valley approaches. The perfect positions for overwatch that an enemy sniper would love. She kept her observations to herself. For now, the team would deploy in 48 hours. Kelleher assigned roles. Webb would serve as primary sniper. Nadia would provide backup overwatch from a secondary position. Webb glanced at her when the assignments were announced. His expression said what his voice did not. She should be primary. They both knew it, but some battles required patience. Some whispers needed time to carry. Webb caught Nadia outside the briefing room before she could disappear into the equipment bay. His jaw was tight with frustration he could not voice inside. "That assignment is wrong," he said quietly. "You outshot me. You should be primary." Nadia kept walking. He made his choice. His choice is going to get someone killed. Webb fell in a step beside her. "I am good. I know I am good. But what you did on that range was something else. If we need precision out there, we need you in the primary position." Nadia stopped and faced him. "If I fight him on this, what happens?" Webb hesitated. "He digs in harder. Says you are emotional. Cannot follow orders. Then I do not fight him." Nadia resumed walking. "I do my job from whatever position he assigns. And when it matters, I prove him wrong the only way that counts." Webb shook his head, but did not argue further. He understood the calculation, even if he did not like it. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Equipment checks, communications tests, rehearsals in the FOB shoot house that simulated the compound where the informant would be extracted. Nadia moved through each exercise with quiet efficiency, her presence increasingly difficult to ignore. During a live-fire drill, she spotted a threat target that 3 other operators missed. A dummy positioned in a shadow, barely visible through a doorway. Her round found it before anyone else registered its presence. Kelleher watched from the observation platform. "Good eyes," he said. Nothing more. But the words carried weight in their brevity. That night, Nadia sat with the team for the first time. Not by invitation, but not rejected either. She had earned a seat at the periphery. Katsuro's made room beside him without comment. The conversation flowed around her. Stories from previous deployments. Dark humor that masked darker memories. The easy rhythm of men who had bled together and expected to bleed together again. Webb turned to her during a lull. "You have been here before. Afghanistan. What was your first deployment like?" Nadia considered the question. "Helmand Province. Attached to a Marine unit for 6 months. They did not want me there either. What changed their minds? We took contact outside Marja. Heavy fire from a compound we had cleared 2 days before. Enemy had tunnels we did not know about." She paused. Their sniper was pinned down, wounded. I moved through open ground to reach his position and provided cover while the corpsman worked on him. Katsuro's leaned forward. "That is how you got the nickname." Wolf Whisper. I read the after-action report, but it did not explain the name. Nadia almost smiled. "The Marine I saved was from Mississippi. Said I moved so quiet he did not know I was there until I started shooting. Said I came out of nowhere like a whisper. His sergeant was Choctaw. Said his grandmother had stories about spirit wolves that moved between worlds without making a sound. The name stuck. The team absorbed this in silence. A story that required no embellishment. A reputation earned in blood. Later, Nadia found a quiet corner of the FOB to make her preparations. She laid out her equipment with ceremonial precision. The M14, her sidearm, ammunition she had hand-loaded herself, using the same powder charge and bullet weight her great-grandfather had perfected decades ago. She held the rifle in her hands and closed her eyes. "Baba," she said softly, "tomorrow I go where you went. Into the mountains. Into the unknown. Give me steady hands. Clear sight. The patience you always had." The dog tags pressed against her chest beneath her uniform. She imagined she could feel them warm, as if her great-grandfather's spirit still lingered in the metal. 0400 came cold and dark. The team assembled at the helicopter pad in full kit, faces painted, weapons checked. 2 Black Hawks waited with rotors already turning. Kelleher conducted final inspection. His eyes lingered on Nadia's M14, but he said nothing. Whatever doubts he carried, he kept them behind his teeth. Katsuro's moved through the team with last-minute instructions. Nadia felt him pause beside her. You see something out there that does not look right. You call it, he said. I do not care what the intel says. You have instincts. Use them. Nadia nodded. She had not shared her concerns about the terrain. Maybe she should have. But instinct without evidence was just paranoia, and paranoia did not earn respect. The helicopters lifted off into darkness. Below, the FOB shrank to a cluster of lights, then disappeared entirely. Ahead, the mountains waited like sleeping giants. Nadia watched the landscape scroll past through the open door. Her great-grandfather had flown into mountains like these. Different country. Same war, in all the ways that mattered. He had survived. He had come home. He had lived long enough to teach her everything he knew. She intended to do the same. The insertion point appeared on the horizon. A valley floor just wide enough for the helicopters to touch down. Ridgelines rising on 3 sides. Perfect concealment for the approach to the informant's village. Also perfect for an ambush. Nadia's instinct screamed. The terrain did not match the intelligence assessment. Minimal enemy presence, the briefing had said. But those ridgelines could hide 100 fighters. The approaches to the valley funneled any force into predictable paths. She keyed her radio. Whispered a lead. These ridgelines concern me. Perfect overwatch positions. Request permission to establish observation before main element moves. Kelleher's response came clipped and cold. Negative. Whisper. Intel says we are clear. Stick to the plan. The helicopters descended. Nadia gripped her rifle and prepared to move. The plan said the valley was safe. Her instincts said the plan was wrong. In 12 hours, she would find out which one to trust. The helicopters touched down in a storm of dust and rotor wash. Nadia was out before the skids settled, moving to her assigned overwatch position on a rocky outcropping 50 meters from the landing zone. The M14 came up smooth, scope scanning the ridgelines that had haunted her since the briefing. Nothing moved. No mousseline, no silhouettes against the pre-dawn sky. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe the intelligence was accurate. Maybe her instincts had betrayed her. The team advanced toward the village in tactical formation. Kelleher on point. Katsuro's covering the rear. Webb had established his sniper position on a rise to the east, his Lapua trained on the northern approach. Nadia swept her scope across the terrain in methodical patterns. Haute formation. Shadows. The 1,000 places an enemy could hide and wait. Still nothing. The village materialized from the darkness. A dozen mud-brick structures clustered around a central courtyard. The informant's location was the 3rd building on the left. In and out. Simple extraction. Kelleher's voice crackled through her earpiece. Element 1 entering the village. Whisper, report. Nadia scanned again. All clear from my position. But something feels wrong. Feelings are not intel, Kelleher replied. Stay focused. The team disappeared into the village. Minutes stretched. Nadia's finger rested beside the trigger guard, not on it. Patience. Discipline. The wolf does not announce itself. Contact. Katsuro's reported. Informant secured. Returning to extract. Nadia allowed herself a small breath. Maybe she had been wrong. Maybe the mission would go exactly as planned. Then the mountains exploded. Muzzle flashes erupted from the northern ridge. Then the eastern ridge. Then positions she had not even identified as threats. The valley became a kill box in the span of 3 heartbeats. Contact, contact, Kelleher shouted. Multiple positions. We are pinned. Nadia's scope found the northern shooters. 600 meters. For fighters with AK-47s. She fired. One dropped. She worked the bolt, acquired, fired again. A second dropped, but there were too many. Rounds impacted around her position, forcing her to displace. She rolled behind a boulder as rock chips sprayed her face. Webb's Lapua he thundered from his position, engaging the eastern ridge. But he was exposed, and the enemy knew it. Webb is hit, someone screamed over the radio. Sniper down. Nadia's blood went cold. She keyed her mic. How bad? Shoulder. Katsuro's responded. His shooting arm. He is out of the fight. The team's primary sniper was down. The enemy had overwatch from 3 directions. Extraction helicopters could not land under this volume of fire. They had walked into a trap. The informant was bait. The bomb maker had known they were coming. Nadia moved. There was no conscious decision. Her body simply responded to years of training and instinct. She displaced from her position, working through the rocks toward a new angle that might give her shots on the eastern ridge. Rounds cracked past her head. Close. Too close. Someone on the ridges had identified her as a threat. Then she saw him. The enemy sniper was positioned 1,100 meters to the northeast, on a shelf of rock that gave him perfect angles on the valley floor. His muzzle flash had been invisible until now because he was using a suppressor. Professional, patient, deadly. He was the one keeping the team pinned. Every time someone moved, his rounds drove them back to cover. The other fighters were harassment. He was the kill shot. Whisper to lead, Nadia transmitted. I have eyes on enemy sniper. 1,100 meters northeast. He is the primary threat. Kelleher's response came through gritted teeth. He had been hit too, she realized. Can you take the shot? Nadia assessed. Her current position gave her a partial angle, but the rock shelf protected most of his body. She could see his muzzle, his scope glint, but not enough to guarantee a kill. Negative, she said. I need to reposition. There is a spot 100 meters up the slope that would give me a clear shot. That slope is completely exposed, Katsuro's cut in. You would be in the open for 60 seconds minimum. Nadia looked at the slope. Bare rock. No cover. The enemy sniper would see her the moment she moved. At 1,100 meters, he would have multiple shots before she reached the new position. If she stayed where she was, the team died slowly. If she moved, she probably died quickly. The choice was not really a choice at all. Whisper moving, she said. She broke from cover and started climbing. The first round hit the rock 2 feet to her left. The enemy sniper had acquired her instantly. She kept moving, zigzagging, making herself unpredictable. A second round passed close enough that she felt the pressure wave against her cheek. 50 meters to go. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed. The M14 was a weight that threatened to drag her down. 30 meters. A round grazed her side, slicing through her uniform and the flesh beneath. Pain erupted, hot and immediate. She stumbled, but did not stop. 20 meters. She could see the position now. A flat rock with a natural rest. Perfect prone platform. If she could reach it. 10 meters. Another round impacted at her feet. The sniper was adjusting, finding her rhythm. She dove the final distance, sliding behind the rock as a round sparked off the stone inches from her head. She was bleeding. She was exposed. And she had one chance to make a shot that would determine whether anyone left this valley alive. Nadia settled the M14 into position, her hands steady despite the pain. She found the enemy sniper in her scope. 1,200 meters now, at the absolute edge of the rifle's capability. The wind was shifting, unpredictable gusts coming off the ridges. At this distance, a 5-mile-per-hour error meant a complete miss. She had one shot, maybe two before he killed her. Her great-grandfather's voice echoed in her mind. The rifle is nothing. The shooter is everything. Breathe with the wind. Nadia began to breathe. 1,200 meters. The number pulsed in Nadia's mind like a second heartbeat. Her great-grandfather had made a shot at 1,100 in Hughes City, in the rain, at night, with this same rifle. No one had believed him. She adjusted the scope, calculating variables that most shooters would feed into a computer. Elevation, temperature, humidity, the spin drift that would pull the bullet right over this distance. The Coriolis effect that most people thought was a myth, but absolutely mattered at extreme range. And the wind. Always the wind. She watched the dust patterns on the ridgeline, the way the scrub brush moved, the microcurrents that swirled through the valley and up the slopes. Her great-grandfather had taught her to read wind the way other people read words on a page. The rifle is nothing, little wolf. The shooter is everything. The enemy sniper fired again. The round impacted the rock 6 inches from her head, showering her face with stone fragments. He had her range now. His next shot would be closer. The one after that would kill her. Katsuro's was screaming something over the radio. Kelleher was barking orders. Webb was cursing through the pain of his shattered shoulder. The sounds faded to white noise. There was only the scope, the target, the wind, and the memory of a man who had carried this rifle through hell and come out the other side. Her great-grandfather's face materialized in her mind. Not the old man she had known at the end, withered by time and disappointment. The young man from the photographs. Strong, certain, eyes that had seen things no person should see and found a way to keep going anyway. He had told her the story of Hugh City only once. She had been 12 years old, and he had been dying, and the words had come out like a confession. They had us pinned, little wolf. Whole squad, trapped in a building with NVA on 3 sides. Our radio man was dead. Our medic was dead. Everyone was going to die. His hands had trembled as he held hers. There was a machine gun position 1,100 meters away, other side of a river. Every time we tried to move, that gun cut us down. I told the lieutenant I could make the shot. He said it was impossible, said I would give away our position. Nadia had asked what happened next. I made the shot anyway. Did not ask permission. Did not wait for approval. I saw what needed to be done, and I did it. Gunner dropped. We moved. 12 Marines made it home because I trusted myself when no one else would. But they did not believe you, Nadia had said. Her great-grandfather had smiled, sad and proud at the same time. They never do, little wolf. That is not why we take the shot. We take the shot because it needs to be taken. Because we are the only ones who can. The believing comes later. Or it does not come at all. Either way, the shot still matters. The enemy sniper's scope glinted in the early light. He was adjusting, preparing. He had maybe 3 seconds before he fired. Nadia's finger moved to the trigger. 1,200 meters. Wind from the northwest at 12 miles per hour, gusting to 18. Temperature, 41 degrees. Altitude, 70 to 100 feet. Bullet drop at this range would be massive. She adjusted her holdover to compensate. The M14's trigger broke clean at 4.5 pounds. The rifle bucked against her shoulder. The report echoed off the valley walls. Time stretched. At 1,200 meters, the bullet would take 2.1 seconds to reach its target. 2.1 seconds of flight through shifting wind and thin mountain air. 2.1 seconds during which the enemy sniper could fire twice and kill her. She watched through the scope as the enemy sniper's body tensed. He was taking his own shot. Their rounds would pass each other somewhere in the space between them. His muzzle flashed. His round hit the rock where her head had been a half-second before. She had shifted without thinking, pure instinct driving her skull 3 inches to the left. And then, 1,200 meters away, the enemy sniper dropped. The shot hit him center mass. The wind adjustment had been perfect. The elevation calculation exact. 53 years after her great-grandfather had carried this rifle through the jungles of Vietnam, it had reached out across an Afghan valley and ended a threat that everyone said was impossible to reach. Silence fell over the radio net. Then Kelleher's voice, broken with disbelief. Did that actually happen? Katsaros responded, his voice cracking. Target down. Confirmed kill at 1,200 meters. That shot is not possible, Webb said through the haze of his pain medication. That is not a possible shot. Tell that to the dead sniper, Katsaros replied. Nadia allowed herself one breath. One moment of recognition. Her great-grandfather's voice whispered across the decades. They never believe, little wolf. But the shot still matters. Then she pushed the moment aside, because the mission was not over. The enemy sniper was down, but fighters still occupied the ridge lines. The team was still pinned. Extraction was still impossible. Nadia shifted her position, ignoring the blood soaking through her uniform. Her side screamed with every movement. She did not care. She found the next target. 400 meters. Easy by comparison. She fired. The fighter dropped. Another target. 500 meters. Fired. Down. The ridgelines began to empty. The fighters had seen what happened to their sniper. They understood that the impossible had become possible, and the woman with the old rifle was methodically killing everyone who stayed in her sight. Extraction helicopters inbound, someone announced. 3 minutes out. Nadia kept shooting, suppressing, protecting. Every round from the M14 bought seconds for the team to survive. Her great-grandfather had saved 12 Marines in Hughes City with this rifle. Today, she would save her own. The helicopters were 2 minutes out. Nadia could hear them in the distance, rotors beating against the mountain air. 2 minutes felt like a lifetime when rounds were still cracking across the valley. She scanned the ridge lines through her scope. The enemy fighters had pulled back after watching their sniper drop, but they had not fled entirely. She counted muzzle flashes from at least 4 positions. Sporadic fire. Harassment. They were buying time for something. Whisper. Katsuros called over the radio. What do you see? For shooters minimum, Nadia replied. Northern Ridge. They are not pressing the attack. Feels like they are waiting. Waiting for what? Reinforcements. Another sniper. Something we have not seen yet. She shifted her scope to check her flanks. The wound in her side had settled into a persistent burn, blood sticky against her uniform. She had maybe 20 minutes before blood loss started affecting her vision and reflexes. Maybe less. Movement. Eastern slope. 3 figures working through the rocks toward her position. Contact, she said calmly. 3 enemies flanking my position. Range for 100 meters and closing. Get out of there, Kelleher ordered. Displace to secondary position. Nadia assessed the geometry. If she moved, the Northern Ridge shooters would have clear angles on the team's extraction point. The helicopters would take fire the moment they tried to land. Negative, she said. If I abandon this position, they have line of sight on the LZ. Extraction becomes impossible. Whisper, you are wounded and you have hostiles approaching. Move. Nadia did not respond. She shifted her rifle toward the flanking enemies and began her calculations. The first target was at 350 meters now, using a boulder for concealment. She could see the top of his head and one shoulder. Enough. She fired. The round caught him in the upper chest, spinning him backward. His weapon clattered against the rocks. The other 2 went to ground immediately. Professionals. Not the untrained fighters she had been engaging before. These moved with purpose and discipline. 2 targets, Nadia reported. They have cover. I need them to move. Katsuros cut in. Whisper. Extraction is 90 seconds out. You need to be at the LZ. I am aware, Chief. She waited. Patience was the sniper's greatest weapon. The wolf does not chase. The wolf waits. One of the fighters broke from cover, trying to sprint to a closer position. Nadia tracked him, led the target, and fired. He dropped at 200 meters. The third fighter stayed hidden. Smart. He knew what she was capable of now. He would wait until she was forced to move, then take a shot. 60 seconds to extraction. Nadia made a decision. She pulled a fragmentation grenade from her vest, calculated the distance, and threw it toward the last fighter's position. Not to kill him, just to move him. The explosion echoed across the slope. The fighter broke cover, sprinting away from the blast radius. Nadia was already on the scope. She fired. He fell. Flanking threat neutralized, she reported. Moving to LZ, she pushed herself up from the prone position, and the wound in her side screamed in protest. Warm blood ran down her hip, soaking into her pants. More blood than she had realized. She started down the slope toward the extraction point. Each step sent shockwaves of pain through her torso. She converted the pain into focus, channeling it the way her great-grandfather had taught her. Pain is information, little wolf. It tells you what is damaged. It does not tell you what is possible. The helicopters appeared over the ridgeline, door gunners already engaging the remaining enemy positions. Suppressive fire raked the northern ridge, driving the fighters into cover. Nadia reached the valley floor as the first Black Hawk touchdown. The team was already moving, carrying Webb between them. Kelleher limped heavily, his leg wound visible through his torn pants. She fell into position beside Katsuros, helping to cover the withdrawal. The M14 barked twice more, keeping heads down on a ridge. Move, Katsuros shouted over the rotor wash. Nadia moved. She was the last one to the helicopter, turning to fire one final round before hands grabbed her vest and hauled her aboard. The Black Hawk lifted off in a storm of dust and noise. Rounds pinged off the armored undercarriage. the door gonna return fire in long, sustained bursts. Then they were clear, climbing away from the valley, the mountains falling away beneath them. Nadia slumped against the bulkhead, her hand pressed against her side. The adrenaline was fading now, and the pain was becoming harder to ignore. Webb sat across from her, his arm immobilized, his face pale. He stared at her with an expression she could not read. "That M14, he said, his voice barely audible over the engines. "It is not a museum piece." Nadia almost laughed. "It is a family heirloom. They are different." Katsuros was already working on her wound, cutting away the uniform to expose the gash beneath. "Through and through," he said. "Missed the organs." "You are lucky." "Lucky would have been not getting shot at all," Nadia replied. Kelleher sat at the far end of the cabin, his own wound being tended by another operator. He had not spoken since they lifted off, but his eyes kept returning to Nadia, studying her as if seeing her for the first time. The helicopter banked toward FOB Chapman. Nadia let her head fall back against the bulkhead, exhaustion washing over her in waves. Her great-grandfather's dog tags pressed against her chest. She wrapped her fingers around them beneath her uniform. "We made it, Baba," she whispered. The shot mattered. Katsuros leaned close. "Stay awake," Wolf whispered. "Stay awake." Nadia forced her eyes to remain open. The mountains scrolled past outside, ancient and indifferent to the violence that had just occurred in their shadows. Somewhere down there, an enemy sniper lay dead at 1,200 meters, and the rifle that killed him had been waiting 53 years for this moment. The helicopter shuddered as it crossed into FOB Chapman's airspace. Nadia's vision had started to blur at the edges, darkness creeping in like fog rolling off a mountain. She focused on Katsuros's face, using it as an anchor to stay conscious. "Talk to me," Katsuros said, his hands still pressed against her wound. "Tell me about your great-grandfather. Tell me about the rifle." Nadia swallowed. Her mouth was dry. Words felt distant, like they had to travel a great distance to reach her lips. "He built it himself," she said. "Not the rifle. The rifle was standard issue. But he modified everything. The trigger, the stock. The barrel was hand-fitted by a gunsmith in Da Nang who owed him a favor." "Keep going," Katsuros urged. "The scope is original. 1960s Redfield. Glass, so clear you could see a man blink at 500 meters. He used to say modern optics were too complicated. Too many adjustments. The old glass forced you to know your rifle. To know yourself." The helicopter touched down hard. Medics were already running toward them, stretcher ready. Nadia felt hands lifting her, moving her, the world tilting and spinning. She grabbed Katsuros's arm. "The rifle," she said. "Do not let anyone take the rifle." "I have it," Katsuros assured her. "It stays with you." Then she was inside the field hospital, lights blazing overhead, faces appearing and disappearing in her narrowing field of vision. Someone was cutting away her uniform. Someone else was inserting in 4-line. Voices called out numbers and terms that blurred together into meaningless sound. "She's crashing," someone shouted. Blood pressure dropping. Nadia felt cold. The kind of cold that started in the center of your chest and radiated outward. Her great-grandfather had described this feeling once. The edge of death, he called it. The place where the body starts letting go. She had asked him what it felt like. Like falling asleep in snow, little wolf. Peaceful. Easy. That is why you have to fight it. The peace is a lie. Nadia fought. She focused on the dog tags against her chest. The weight of them. The warmth that somehow remained even as her own body grew cold. 4 generations of warriors had carried these tags, or ones like them. 4 generations had faced death and refused to surrender. She would not be the one who broke the chain. The surgery took 3 hours. Nadia drifted in and out of consciousness, aware of hands working inside her body, of pressure and pulling and the strange sensation of being repaired like a machine. The anesthesia kept her under just enough to prevent pain, but not enough to silence her mind. She dreamed of her great-grandfather. They stood together on a mountain that existed in no geography she recognized. He was young again, the way he looked in the Vietnam photographs. strong and certain, with eyes that had seen too much but still held hope. "You did well, little wolf," he said. "The shot," Nadia replied. 1,200 meters. He smiled. "I knew you would make it. I knew since you were 6 years old, shooting cans off fence posts with a pellet gun. You have the stillness, the patience, the gift." "They did not believe you either," Nadia said. "About Hugh City." Her great-grandfather's smile faded into something more complex. Sadness and pride and acceptance woven together. "They will believe now," he said. "Because of you. My shot saved 12 Marines, and no one remembered. Your shot will save the memory of mine. That is the gift you give me, little wolf. That is the legacy," he continued. Nadia reached for him, but he was already fading, dissolving into the mountain air like morning mist. "Tell them," he said as he disappeared. "Tell them what this rifle can do. Tell them what we can do." She woke in a recovery room, the steady beep of monitors replacing the chaos of surgery. Daylight streamed through a small window. She had lost an entire night. The M14 lay on the table beside her bed, cleaned and oiled. Someone had taken care of it while she was under. She reached out with her unbandaged arm and touched the stock, feeling the smooth wood beneath her fingertips. Katsuros sat in a chair by the door. He straightened when he saw her eyes open. "Welcome back, Wolf Whisper," he said. "How long?" Nadia managed. "Surgery was 6 hours ago. You lost a lot of blood, but they patched you up. Said you were lucky the round did not hit anything important." "I do not feel lucky." Katsuros smiled slightly. He rose and moved to her bedside. "There is something you should know. The informant's intel was good. The bomb maker's location. Another team hit the target 12 hours ago. He is dead." Nadia processed this. The trap had nearly killed them all, but the mission's ultimate objective had been achieved. 12 Americans, Katsuros continued. "That is how many he killed with his bombs. And now he is dead because you kept us alive long enough to get that intel back to base." Nadia closed her eyes. 12 lives avenged. Her great-grandfather had saved 12 Marines in Hugh City. The number felt like more than coincidence. "The senior chief," she asked. "How is he?" "Leg wound is serious but not career-ending. He has been in and out of here checking on you." Nadia opened her eyes. "Checking on me?" Katsuros nodded. "He has not said much, but he has been here. 3 times that I counted." Something had shifted. She could feel it in the air, in Katsuros's tone, in the simple fact that Kelleher had bothered to visit at all. "The shot," Nadia said. "Does he believe it?" Katsuros leaned closer. "He does not just believe it. He has not stopped talking about it." The debrief lasted 4 hours, and half of it was him describing what you did on that mountain. He paused, his expression turning serious. "There's going to be an inquiry. High Command wants to know how a mission went that wrong, and everyone came back alive. They want to understand the 1,200-meter shot. And right now, most of them do not believe it is possible." The inquiry convened 3 days after Nadia was cleared to leave the field hospital. A conference room in the FOB's command building had been converted into a formal hearing space, with tables arranged in a horseshoe pattern and recording equipment positioned in the corners. 4 officers sat behind the main table. A 1-star general from Joint Special Operations Command, a Navy captain representing DevGru leadership, 2 colonels whose role Nadia could not immediately identify. Their faces carried the skeptical neutrality of people who had heard too many improbable stories to accept any of them at face value. Nadia sat in a chair facing them, her side still bandaged beneath her uniform. The M14 rested in its case beside her, cleaned and ready for inspection if required. Kelleher testified first. He walked to the front of the room on crutches, his wounded leg immobilized in a brace. He looked different than he had before the mission. Something behind his eyes had softened without becoming weak. "Petty Officer Okonkwo," he began, "made a shot I would have said was impossible before I witnessed it. At 1,200 meters, using an M14 variant, she neutralized an enemy sniper who had my entire team pinned in a kill zone. Without that shot, none of us would have returned from that valley." The general leaned forward. "Senior Chief, our ballistics experts say that 1,200 meters exceeds the effective range of the M14 platform. Are you certain of the distance?" "I'm certain, sir. I personally verified the range after extraction using satellite imagery. 1,214 meters, to be exact. The captain spoke next. And you are confident in your assessment that this shot was the decisive factor in the engagement? Kelleher's jaw tightened. With respect, sir, I am not confident. I am certain. The enemy sniper had U.S. dead to rights. Every time we moved, his rounds drove us back. Petty Officer Okonkwo crossed 100 meters of exposed ground under direct fire, took a bullet in the process, and still made the shot that saved our lives. I have been in this community for 14 years. I have never seen anything like it. He paused, his eyes finding Nadia's across the room. I did not want her on my team. I thought she was a political assignment, a check mark on someone's diversity report. I was wrong. She is the finest sniper I have ever served with, and that rifle she carries is not a museum piece. It is a precision instrument in the hands of someone who knows how to use it. Nadia kept her expression neutral, but something shifted in her chest. An acknowledgement she had never expected to receive. Katsuros testified next. His account matched Kelleher's in every detail. Then Webb, his arms still in a sling, described watching through his spotting scope as Nadia made the impossible shot. I have studied ballistics my entire career, Webb said. I know what the M14 can and cannot do. What she did should not have worked. But I watched the round travel. I watched the target drop. The physics say it is impossible. The dead sniper says otherwise. The colonels exchanged glances. The general made notes on a pad in front of him. Finally, it was Nadia's turn. She walked to the front of the room, her gait steady despite the pain in her side. She stood at attention until the general gestured for her to speak. Petty Officer Okonkwo, he said, in your own words, explain how you made this shot. Nadia took a breath. Sir, the M14 I carry was my great-grandfather's service rifle in Vietnam. He was a Marine Scout sniper. Isaiah Okonkwo. He made modifications to the platform over 6 years of combat operations that improved its accuracy beyond factory specifications. She gestured to the rifle case. The trigger has been tuned to a 4.5-pound break with 0 creep. The barrel was hand-fitted by a gunsmith who specialized in match-grade weapons. The stock was bedded and adjusted to my specific hold, and I use hand-loaded ammunition with the same powder charge and bullet weight that my great-grandfather developed in 1968. The general's eyebrows rose. You hand-load your own ammunition? Yes, sir. Every round I fire has been assembled by my own hands. I know exactly what each bullet will do at every distance because I built it to do precisely that. And the 1,200-meter shot, specifically? Nadia met his eyes. I calculated elevation adjustment based on the rifle's known ballistic coefficient at altitude. I read the wind using visual indicators across the entire flight path. I accounted for temperature, humidity, and the Coriolis effect. And then I trusted 60 years of accumulated knowledge, mine and my great-grandfather's, and I took the shot. Silence filled the room. The general leaned back. Your great-grandfather, Isaiah Okonkwo. I recognize that name. Nadia's heart rate increased slightly. Sir? The general's expression shifted into something unexpected. Respect and memory. I was a lieutenant in Vietnam. Khe Sanh area, 1968. There were stories about a black sniper who could do things no one else could do. Made shots that the brass said were fabricated. His own commanders did not believe him. He paused. My platoon sergeant believed him. Said he saw one of those shots himself. 1,100 meters through rain at a target that was about to overrun a Marine position. No one put in the official record because no one in command would sign off on something they thought was impossible. Nadia's throat tightened. That was my great-grandfather, sir. The general nodded slowly. Then I suppose the ability runs in the family. He looked at the other officers. I have heard enough. This inquiry will recommend commendation, not investigation. What happened in that valley was not a failure to be explained. It was an extraordinary act of skill and courage that saved American lives. He stood, and the other officers stood with him. Petty Officer Okonkwo, the general said, your great-grandfather never received the recognition he deserved. I cannot fix that injustice, but I can make sure the same thing does not happen to you. Nadia stood at attention as the officers filed out. Kelleher remained, balanced on his crutches, watching her with an expression she had never seen on his face before. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "You do not owe me anything, Senior Chief." "Yes," he said. "I do." He moved closer, his voice dropping so only she could hear. "I blamed every woman who came near my team for something that was not their fault. Rachel Herrera died because I failed as a leader, not because she was attached to my unit. I have spent 6 years punishing the wrong people for my own mistakes." He straightened as much as his wounded leg would allow. "That ends today. You are not Rachel. You are not a political assignment. You are one of the finest operators I have ever seen. And if you will have us, I want you on my team permanently." Nadia studied his face. The walls that had defined him were crumbling. What remained was something more human than she had expected. "I will think about it," she said, but they both knew she had already decided. The award recommendation came through 5 days after the inquiry. Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal with Combat Distinguishing Device. Nadia read the citation 3 times, not because she needed to understand the words, but because she needed to believe they were real. For extraordinary heroism and outstanding courage under fire during combat operations in Khyber Province, Afghanistan. Petty Officer, 2nd Class Okonkwo, with complete disregard for her own safety, engaged and neutralized an enemy sniper at a distance of 1,200 meters while wounded, enabling the successful extraction of her entire team under hostile fire. She set the paper down and looked at the M14 leaning against the wall of her quarters. Her great-grandfather had never received anything like this. His shots, his sacrifices, his impossible feats had vanished into the silence of institutional disbelief. A knock at her door interrupted the thought. Webb stood in the frame, his arms still immobilized, but his color returned. "You heard about the medal," he said. "Just now." Webb stepped inside, glancing at the rifle with something approaching reverence. "There's more. Katsuros wanted me to tell you before the official announcement." Nadia waited. "Master Chief Trent has been making calls, reaching out to old Marines, guys who served with your great-grandfather or new people who did. He found something." Webb pulled a folded paper from his pocket and handed it to her. Sworn statements. 3 of them. Marines who witnessed the Hughes City shot. One of them was the platoon sergeant the general mentioned. He is 82 years old, and he remembers everything. The distance, the rain, the impossible angle. He has been waiting 50 years for someone to ask him about it. Nadia unfolded the paper. The handwriting was shaky with age, but the words were clear. "I saw Isaiah Okonkwo make that shot. 1,100 meters through monsoon rain. Saved my entire platoon. I told my CO what happened, and he said I must have been mistaken. Said no one could shoot like that. I knew what I saw. I have known for 53 years. And I am glad someone is finally asking." Her vision blurred. She blinked rapidly, forcing the tears back. "Trent is pushing for posthumous recognition," Webb continued. "Silver Star. Based on these statements and the historical record. It is not guaranteed, but he thinks it has a real chance." Nadia could not speak. Her throat had closed around emotions she had spent years learning to suppress. "Your great-grandfather," Webb said quietly. "He never got to see this. But you did. You made them look. You made them remember. And now maybe he gets what he deserved all along." She found her voice. "Why are you doing this?" "Trent. You. All of you." Webb shrugged. "Because it matters. Because what happened to him was wrong. And because you showed us what that rifle can do. What your family can do." He paused. Some legacies deserve to be remembered. He left her alone with the paper and the rifle and the weight of 50 years finally being lifted. That evening, Nadia video called Lieutenant Commander O'Yelleran. The older woman's face filled the screen, her expression already knowing. "I heard," O'Yelleran said, "about the medal, about your great-grandfather. Word travels fast in this community." "I did not expect any of this," Nadia replied. O'Yelleran smiled. "You never do. That is what makes you different from the ones who chase glory. You just do the work. The recognition finds its own way." Nadia hesitated. "Kelleher offered me a permanent position on his team, and I'm going to accept." O'Yelleran nodded slowly. He has changed. I have known Damon Kelleher for 12 years. I have never heard him admit he was wrong about anything. Whatever happened on that mountain broke something open in him. Or fixed something, Nadia said. Maybe both. O'Yelleran leaned closer to the camera. You know what this means. Permanent attachment to a SEAL team. More deployments. More danger. More chances to get shot. I know. And you're certain this is what you want? Nadia looked at the M14. At her great-grandfather's dog tags, hanging from the stock. At the citation for a medal she had never sought. My great-grandfather spent his whole life proving himself to people who refused to see him, she said. He died thinking his legacy would be forgotten. Now his legacy is being recognized because of something I did with his rifle, in his tradition, using everything he taught me. She turned back to the screen. This is not what I want. This is what I was made for. 4 generations led to this moment. I'm not going to walk away from it now. O'Yelleran's smile widened. Then welcome to the rest of your life, Wolf whispered. Try not to get shot again. The call ended. Nadia sat in the silence of her quarters, holding the citation in one hand and her great-grandfather's dog tags in the other. Tomorrow she would formally accept Kelleher's offer. Tomorrow she would become a permanent part of a team that had once rejected her. Tomorrow a new chapter would begin. But tonight, she allowed herself to feel the moment. The vindication. The connection across decades to a man who had shaped everything she was without ever seeing what she would become. She spoke to the empty room, to the rifle, to whatever part of her great-grandfather might still linger in the metal and what he had carried through hell. They believe now, Baba. They finally believe. The dog tags caught the light, warm against her palm. Somewhere, she was certain, Isaiah Okonkwo was smiling. Nadia signed the transfer papers in Kelleher's office the following morning. The paperwork was routine, standard military bureaucracy, but the moment felt like something larger. A threshold crossed, a belonging earned. Kelleher watched her sign the final page, his expression unreadable. Welcome to the team, he said. Officially. Thank you, Senior Chief. He leaned back in his chair, the crutches propped against his desk. There is something I never told you. About Rachel Herrera. Nadia set down the pen. You do not have to explain anything. Yes, I do. He rubbed his jaw, searching for words that did not come easily. She was good at her job. Really good. Intel officer who understood operators better than most Intel officers ever do. She earned her place on that team. What happened? Kelleher's eyes went distant. IED. Route clearance mission that should have been routine. She was in the second vehicle because I put her there. I thought it was safer. Turned out the second vehicle was the target. He fell silent for a moment. I spent 6 years telling myself that if she had not been attached to my team, she would still be alive. That the attachment policy killed her. That women in combat units was the problem. Nadia waited. But the truth is simpler than that, Kelleher continued. The truth is that I made a tactical decision and it got someone killed. That happens in war. It has happened to every leader who has ever led troops into combat. I just could not accept that it happened to me. He met her eyes. You surviving that mountain, making that shot, it forced me to see what I have been refusing to see. Rachel did not die because she was a woman. She died because war kills people. And blaming her, blaming the policy, blaming every female operator who came after her, that was just cowardice dressed up as principle. Nadia considered her response carefully. Rachel Herrera sounds like someone who understood the risks and accepted them. She did. Then honor her by leading better, not by carrying guilt that does not belong to you. Kelleher almost smiled. You sound like my old Master Chief. Maybe your old Master Chief was right. He stood, balancing on his good leg, and extended his hand. Nadia shook it. Welcome to the team, Wolf whispered. Try not to make me look bad. The team gathered that evening in the common area. Not for a formal ceremony. Just a meal shared among people who had survived something together. Nadia sat at the center of the table for the first time, no longer at the periphery. Katsuros raised a cup of coffee in her direction. To the woman who made the impossible shot. Webb lifted his own cup. To the rifle that everyone said belonged in a museum. Other voices joined in. Men who had doubted her. Men who had dismissed her. Men who now understood what she was capable of. Nadia raised her cup in return. To the team that gave me the chance to prove it. They drank together. The conversation flowed. Stories from past deployments mixed with speculation about future ones. Nadia found herself laughing at jokes she would not have understood 3 weeks ago. References to shared experiences that she was now part of. Webb leaned close during a lull. "I've been working on something. For you." He slid a small box across the table. Nadia opened it to find a row of brass cartridges nestled in foam. Hand-loaded ammunition, each round assembled with obvious care. "My own recipe," Webb said. "Match-grade bullets, custom powder charge. I figured that M14 deserves the best ammunition available." Nadia lifted one of the cartridges, examining the craftsmanship. "These are beautiful. Do not get too excited. I still want a rematch. Fair conditions, no wounded shoulder, no one shooting at us." Nadia set the round back in the box. "You might regret that." "Probably. But I need to know. For my own peace of mind." She closed the box and met his eyes. "Thank you, Marcus, for this. For everything." Webb shrugged, but his expression softened. "You earned it. Every bit of it." Later that night, Nadia sat alone on the concrete barrier at the edge of the FOB. The same spot where she had spoken to her great-grandfather before the mission. The mountains rose dark against the stars, ancient and patient. She had a letter to write. To her father, who had served in the Navy before her. To her family, who had carried the weight of Isaiah Okonkwo's unrecognized legacy for half a century. The words came slowly at first, then faster. "Dad, something happened here that I need to tell you about. Something that changes everything we thought we knew about Baba's story." She wrote about the mission, the shot, the inquiry, the sworn statements from Marines who had witnessed her great-grandfather's impossible feat 53 years ago. She wrote about the Silver Star recommendation, about Master Chief Trent and the old warriors who remembered what the official record had chosen to forget. She wrote about the rifle. "Baba was right, Dad. The rifle is nothing. The shooter is everything. But maybe the rifle carries something too. Memory, purpose, the hands of everyone who held it before. I held it on a mountain in Afghanistan. I made a shot that no one thought was possible. And in making it, I proved that Baba's shot was real too. That everything he told us was true. His legacy did not die with him. It lives through me. And now everyone knows." She folded the letter and slipped it into an envelope. Tomorrow she would send it. Tomorrow her family would learn that the story they had guarded for generations had finally been validated. But tonight, she sat beneath the Afghan stars and let herself feel the weight of what she had inherited. The skill, the patience, the quiet certainty that had been passed from generation to generation until it reached her. 4 generations of warriors, 1 rifle, 1 legacy, and a whisper that had finally been heard. 3 months later, Nadia stood at attention in a ceremony hall at Marine Corps Base Quantico. The room was filled with uniforms. Marines in dress blues, Navy personnel in whites, a scattering of civilians who had traveled from across the country to witness something 50 years overdue. Her father sat in the front row, his own Navy service ribbons pinned to his chest. Beside him, her mother and 2 younger brothers. Behind them, cousins and aunts and uncles who carried the Okonkwo name and the story that came with it. Kelleher stood with the rest of the team near the back. Katsuros, Webb, men who had bled beside her in the Afghan mountains and traveled halfway around the world to see this moment through. Master Chief Trent had made it happen. Months of phone calls, sworn statements, official requests through channels that had been closed for decades. The evidence was overwhelming once someone finally chose to look at it. A Marine general stepped to the podium. The room fell silent. "We are gathered today to correct an injustice," the general began. "To recognize a warrior whose extraordinary service was overlooked by those who could not believe what he accomplished. To honor a man who served his country with distinction and received nothing but doubt in return." He paused, letting the words settle. Sergeant Isaiah Okonkwo served as a Marine Scout sniper during some of the most intense combat operations of the Vietnam War. At Khe Sanh, at Hughes City, In engagements that never made the official record, he demonstrated skill and courage that his fellow Marines remembered for the rest of their lives. The general lifted a medal case from the podium. On February 14, 1968, during the Battle of Hue City, Sergeant Okonkwo engaged and neutralized an enemy machine gun position at a range of 1,100 meters through monsoon rain, saving the lives of 12 Marines who would otherwise have been overrun. His commanding officer declined to submit the action for recognition, stating that the shot was impossible. Nadia's throat tightened. She kept her eyes forward, her posture rigid. Today, based on sworn testimony from surviving witnesses and corroborating evidence gathered over the past 3 months, the United States Marine Corps posthumously awards Sergeant Isaiah Okonkwo the Silver Star for gallantry in action against an enemy of the United States. The general turned to Nadia. Petty Officer Okonkwo, please step forward to accept this award on behalf of your great-grandfather. Nadia walked to the podium on legs that felt distant from her body. The general placed the medal case in her hands. The Silver Star gleamed against blue velvet, catching the light the way her great-grandfather's eyes had caught the light when he told her stories of the rifle and the war and the shots no one believed. She turned to face the assembled crowd. Her family, her team, the Marines who had gathered to witness justice delivered half a century late. The general nodded for her to speak. My great-grandfather taught me that excellence is the only answer to doubt, that the quietest whisper carries further than the loudest shout, that a rifle is nothing without the shooter, but a shooter carries the spirit of everyone who held that rifle before them. Her voice steadied as she continued. He waited 50 years for this moment. He did not live to see it, but I see it for him. I carry his rifle. I carry his legacy, and I will carry both until I can pass them to the next generation, the way he passed them to me. She looked at the medal in her hands. This Silver Star belongs to a man who never stopped believing in himself, even when no one else would. A man who made the impossible possible and asked for nothing in return except to be believed. Today, 53 years after he earned it, we finally believe. She returned to her position. The ceremony continued with remarks from other officers, from Marines who had known her great-grandfather or known men who had. But Nadia heard little of it. She was lost in the weight of the medal case and the warmth of the dog tags against her chest. Afterward, Master Chief Trent approached her with something in his hands. A photograph, old and faded, protected by a clear sleeve. My father kept this, he said. Never showed it to anyone until I told him what you did in Afghanistan. The photograph showed a young black Marine in jungle fatigues, holding an M14 rifle. Isaiah Okonkwo, strong and certain, with eyes that had seen too much but still held hope. On the back, in faded ink, words that made Nadia's breath catch. For the one who comes after me. Make the shot count. He knew, Trent said quietly. Somehow, he knew someone would continue what he started. Nadia traced the words with her fingertip. He told me, once that legacy is not what you leave behind. It is what you send forward. Trent nodded. Then he sent forward something extraordinary. The team gathered around her as the crowd dispersed. Kelleher, Katsaros, Webb, men who had doubted her and been proven wrong. Men who would follow her into combat without hesitation now. Kelleher spoke first. New mission briefing tomorrow. Mountain terrain. High-value target. Go and need our best sniper on Overwatch. He met her eyes. You ready, Wolf Whisper? Nadia looked at the medal in one hand and the photograph in the other. 4 generations of warriors. One rifle. One legacy that stretched from the jungles of Vietnam to the mountains of Afghanistan and now forward into whatever came next. She thought of her great-grandfather, of the shots he made that no one believed, of the story he carried alone for 50 years, of the whisper that had finally been heard. I was born ready, she said. If this story moved you, drop a comment and tell us about the legacies in your family. The heirlooms passed down, the stories told, the skills inherited. Or let us know if you have ever witnessed someone prove the doubters wrong in a way no one expected. Nadia walked out of the ceremony hall with her team beside her and her great-grandfather's rifle waiting in its case. The sun was bright. The future was uncertain. And somewhere across the decades, Isaiah Okonkwo was finally at peace. The wolf does not announce itself. It simply appears. And by then it is too late. 4 generations of warriors, 1 rifle, 1 legacy, and a whisper that carries further than any shout.